All these famous people tell us, don't they, that we need to rewear our clothes. I don't know what world they live in, because most ordinary folk do indeed rewear their clothes. Nikki, your thoughts on this whole COP26?
Yeah, gosh, well, like you say, Michelle, it's only day 3 and it feels like you can't get away from this as any kind of discussion. I suppose what I thought today about the Chancellor's speech was that it was, you know, as always with Rishi, very positive, sounds great, he delivers it brilliantly, but it's always very poor on detail. And, you know, there was this very important line in it, which was, we're going to work towards a mandate. So at this stage, what he's saying is, we're not going to force anyone with the law to change their business, but we are potentially going to work towards that. Now, the reality is, if you're a struggling small business, maybe, after COVID, after Brexit, and you're being told, well, we want you to do these things, but you don't have to do them, are you going to do them? Most people can't afford at this point in time. Yes, it's fine for the big corporates, but they've kind of been doing some of these green initiatives anyway, because it's good for their brand. So I feel like what's going to happen is the gap between the businesses that can already afford to do it and those that can't is going to widen. And then we're going to end up with a kind of two-tier society when it comes to who's apparently green and who's not.
Interesting. And I'm not really a big fan of mandates, and we'll talk about vaccine mandates in just a moment, I'm sure, but I'm not a big fan of mandates. But I have to say, when we have all this conversation about recycling, etc., I do just think, well, why don't you just mandate producers to create stuff with recyclable packaging? Why is it my responsibility to separate everything into God only knows how many bits and pieces, taking out the little bit of a plastic bit on an envelope because that can't be recycled, or a coffee cup that's got a liner that can't? Why is it my job to just mandate producers to do stuff that's environmentally friendly? But maybe I'm just lazy, Alan.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think that one of the things is that the obsession with the individual and consumption is a problem, because where we know the impacts are always at the industrial level, so that everyone sorting out their own rubbish and then getting fined by the council is not only a problematic diversion, it also ends up being an authoritarian impulse on ordinary people. But what's interesting is that in the discussion, the COP26, you think, OK, well, we know that we're reliant on carbon at the moment, and actually what we're talking about with, let's get it real, ordinary people, living standards, working conditions. If one wanted to have a robust kind of approach to transform things and use nuclear energy, for instance, as they do 65% in France and others in Sweden. Everyone's stepping away from that now, right? They're stepping away from that rather than expanding it. And this notion that you have sustainable development is an oxymoron. Development and innovation is the way to transform things, whether it's to do with resources being depleted. The only way you create new resources is through technology and innovation. That changes our relationship to the resources around us. And I think that rather than saying let's have virtue signalling and talking about readjusting things to say things in a certain way, we should think about how technology, our human capacity to create, can make things better around without imposing all these costs and restrictions on ordinary people and business.